The water here is deep, cold, and unforgiving. Above the surface, the world is locked in a geopolitical stalemate known as the Cold War. But down here, in the crushing blackness of the ocean, the war is not cold. It is hot. And it is happening within touching distance. We are in the Sea of Okhotsk. To the Soviet Union, this body of water is a fortress, a specialized bastion where they test their deadliest secrets. To the United States Navy, it is known as the Bear's Backyard. And you do not enter the Bear's Backyard unless you are looking for a fight. Prowling these hostile waters is the USS Tautog, hull number SSN 639. She is a Sturgeon-class attack submarine, a hunter-killer. She is 300 feet of hardened steel, packed with the most advanced listening sensors known to man. Her mission is classified top secret. It is part of a program called Operation Holy Stone. Her orders are simple but dangerous: penetrate Soviet territorial waters, find the enemy's nuclear missile carriers, and trail them. Commanding the Tautog is Commander B. Balderston. He is a man known for his aggression, a commander who believes that the only way to truly understand the enemy is to be close enough to hear them breathe. But on this night, Commander Balderston is about to get closer than he ever intended. It happens in a split second. The physics of 50,000 tons of steel colliding in the dark. A violent impact that throws men from their bunks and tears metal like paper. In the command center of the Tautog, the crew freezes. They listen to the sonar, and what they hear chills their blood, breaking up noises. The sound of a hull crushing under immense pressure. The sound of dying. For 30 years, the men on that boat believed they had committed the ultimate sin. They believed they had sunk a Soviet nuclear submarine, killing 90 men, and started World War III. This is the story of the collision that never happened. This is the secret of the USS Tautog. To understand why two nuclear-powered leviathans were playing a game of chicken in the dark, we must understand the year 1970. The Vietnam War is raging. The strategic arms limitation talks are fragile. Paranoia is the currency of the day. The United States Navy realized that satellite photos were not enough. They needed acoustic signatures. They needed to know exactly how loud Soviet propellers were, how fast their engines cycled, and how deep they could dive. They needed to record these sounds to build a library of death. Enter the Sturgeon-class. The Tautog was a marvel of engineering. Displacing 4,700 tons submerged and powered by a S-5W nuclear reactor, she was a thoroughbred. She was fast, capable of over 25 knots, but more importantly, she was quiet. She was designed to hunt. Her nose contained the BQQ-2 sonar suite, a massive sphere of hydrophones capable of detecting a whale's heartbeat from miles away. But her prey was a different beast entirely. The target was the K-108. NATO code name, Echo 2. The Soviet crew called her something else. They called her Black Lila. If the Tautog was a rapier, the K-108 was a sledgehammer. She was massive, nearly 6,000 tons. She wasn't designed to hunt other subs. She was designed to kill cities. The Echo 2 class carried 8 P-6 Shattuck cruise missiles. Each one was tipped with a nuclear warhead capable of leveling a metropolis. But the K-108 had a fatal flaw. She was loud. Her two massive propellers churned the water, creating a cacophony that American sonar operators could hear from halfway across the Pacific. Or so they thought. The K-108 was operating out of Petropavlovsk, a major Soviet naval base. Captain Boris Bagdasaryan, the Soviet commander, was running drills. He was testing his boat, testing his crew. He had no idea that a silent American shadow was right behind him. Submarine warfare is a game of angles. Every submarine has a blind spot. It is called the Baffles. Because of the noise generated by its own propellers and engine machinery, a submarine cannot hear what is directly behind it. It is a cone of deafness, a 60-degree wedge of vulnerability. If you are a hunter, the Baffles are where you live. Commander Balderston maneuvered the Tautog into this cone. It requires nerves of steel. You are driving a 4,000-ton vehicle, blind, relying on mathematics to keep you from crashing into the nuclear reactor in front of you. The distance in these operations was often terrifyingly short. Sometimes less than 50 yards separated the hunter from the prey. For hours, the Tautog tracked Black Lila. They recorded her screw turns. They analyzed her machinery noises. This was the intelligence goldmine Operation Holy Stone was built for. The crew of the Tautog was tense. They were deeply inside Soviet territorial waters. If they were detected, the Soviets would be within their rights to fire upon them. But the Soviets were not amateurs. They knew about the Baffles. They knew about the American shadows. And they had a maneuver to deal with it. A maneuver that American submariners called Ivan, specifically, Crazy Ivan. A Crazy Ivan is a sudden violent turn. The Soviet captain jams the rudder hard over, spinning the submarine 180 degrees. This does two things. First, it clears the baffles, allowing the sonar to hear what was previously hidden behind the engine noise. Second, if someone is behind them, it turns the hunter into the hunted, or the victim of a collision. It is just past midnight. On the Tautog, the sonar operator sees a change in the frequency on the scope. The rhythm of the Soviet propellers shifts. Transient, the operator calls out, but it is too late. Captain Bagdasarian on the K-108 orders a turn. He isn't checking for spies. He is simply running a drill. He has no idea the Tautog is there. As the massive Soviet sub swings its stern around, it occupies the exact space where the Tautog is floating. The Tautog IS sail, the tall tower atop the hull that houses the periscopes and antennas, smashes into the belly of the Soviet giant. The force is catastrophic. On the Tautog, men are thrown across the control room. Charts fly. The vessel heels over violently to the starboard side. The sound is deafening. It is the scream of tearing HY-80 steel. The Tautog rolls, stabilizing. The crew scrambles for damage control. "Sound the collision alarm!" rings through the boat. But then, silence. Commander Balderston orders an immediate listen. The crew presses their headphones to their ears, waiting for the sound of torpedo doors opening, waiting for retaliation. Instead, they hear something far worse. Over the hydrophones comes the terrifying sound of a submarine breaking apart, crunching metal, the hiss of escaping air, the distinct pop of bulkheads failing. And then, the engine noise of the K-108 stops completely. The Tautog crew looks at each other in horror. The conclusion is obvious. They have just hulled a Soviet nuclear submarine. They believe they are listening to the K-108 sink to the bottom of the Sea of Okhotsk, taking 90 Soviet sailors to a watery grave. Panic begins to set in. If the K-108 is gone, the Soviet Navy will be looking for answers. And they will be looking for the killer. The Tautog is damaged. Her sail is bent. She is leaking slightly, but her pressure hull is intact. Balderston makes the call, run. They clear the area at high speed, then drop to a crawl to remain silent. Every hour is an eternity. They wait for the depth charges. They wait for the active sonar pings of Soviet destroyers hunting for them. But the ocean remains quiet. Weeks later, the Tautog limps into Pearl Harbor. It is the middle of the night. They are not greeted by a band or family members. They are greeted by intelligence officers. The damage to the sail is undeniable. It is twisted and scarred. But there is something else. Embedded in the twisted steel of the Tautog's sail is a piece of metal. Analysis confirms it. It is a fragment of a Soviet propeller. The crew is debriefed. They are told to never speak of this. The logbooks are altered. The collision is scrubbed from the record. As far as the world is concerned, the Tautog hit an underwater ice ridge. But the men knew. They lived with the guilt. For decades, many of them believed they were murderers. Decades pass. The Cold War ends. The Soviet Union collapses. The secrets of the deep begin to float to the surface. In the late 1990s, American researchers traveled to Russia. They wanted to know about the lost submarines. Instead, they found Captain Boris Bagdasarian alive. The K-108 hadn't sunk. The breaking up noises the Tautog heard? It wasn't the hull collapsing. It was the Tautog's sail smashing the outer casing of the Soviet sub and shearing off one of its propellers. The K-108 had lost propulsion on one side. It had plummeted towards the bottom, spiraling out of control. But Bagdasarian, fighting in the dark, managed to blow his ballast tanks in a desperate bid for survival. The Soviet sub arrested its fall. It limped back to Petropavlovsk on one screw. The Soviets, just like the Americans, kept it a secret. They didn't want to admit an American sub had gotten that close to their missile carrier. Both sides thought they had survived a brush with death. Both sides hid the truth. It wasn't until a meeting in 2000 that the truth came out. The American crew learned they weren't killers. The Russian crew learned who had hit them. The collision of the Tautog and the Black Lila remains one of the closest calls in naval history. Two nuclear-armed vessels colliding in the dark, inches away from catastrophe. It is a reminder that while the politicians spoke of peace in Geneva, down in the deep, the war was very, very real.